The man who tricked a country into printing millions intro. Imagine walking into a bank with money that is completely real. Not counterfeit, not stolen, not fake in any way. The paper is genuine. The ink is genuine. The serial numbers are genuine. Everything about the money is authentic. Yet somehow, it should never have existed. This is the unbelievable true story of Artur Alves dos Reis, the man who convinced an entire system to print millions of dollars worth of banknotes for him. Some historians call it the greatest financial fraud in history. Others call it the most brilliant scam ever executed. And the most shocking part? For a long time, nobody suspected a thing. A young man with big ambitions. Artur Alves dos Reis was born in Portugal in 1898. From an early age, he dreamed of wealth, influence, and success. But there was one problem. He wanted success much faster than ordinary people. As a young man, Reis became involved in fraud and deception. He forged documents, exaggerated qualifications, and repeatedly found shortcuts to get what he wanted. Many people viewed him as intelligent and charming. Others saw him as dangerous. But nobody could have predicted what he would do next. In the early 1920s, Portugal was facing economic difficulties. Money was scarce, banks were struggling, the country's financial system was under pressure. Reis realized something extraordinary. Instead of stealing money from a bank, what if he could convince the bank to create money for him? It sounded impossible, yet that impossible idea became the foundation of one of the boldest schemes ever attempted. Reis and his associates created a complex network of forged contracts and legal documents. These documents falsely suggested that a special financial project had been approved involving Portugal's overseas colonies. The paperwork appeared official. The signatures appeared legitimate. The legal language looked convincing. The goal was simple: to trick the people responsible for printing Portugal's currency. And remarkably, it worked. At the time, Portugal's banknotes were printed by a respected British company called Waterloo & Sons. This company had a long history of producing official banknotes for governments around the world. Through forged documentation, Reis convinced the company that it had authorization to print additional Portuguese banknotes. The company believed everything was legitimate. After all, the paperwork appeared genuine. The instructions appeared official. Nothing seemed suspicious. And so the printing began. What made this fraud different from ordinary counterfeiting? The banknotes were not fake. They were produced by the same company that legally printed Portugal's currency. The paper was real. The printing process was real. The security features were real. Everything was genuine. The only problem was that the authorization itself was fraudulent. Reis had effectively tricked the system into creating official money outside the control of the central bank. He had not copied the currency. He had secretly increased the money supply. Once the new banknotes arrived, Reis moved quickly. He began investing. He purchased businesses. He acquired properties. He gained influence in financial circles. People were amazed by his apparent success. Many assumed he was a brilliant businessman. Few questioned where his money came from. The scheme was working better than he could have imagined. Millions of escudos were flowing through his hands, and nobody was stopping him. Reis became even more ambitious. Instead of hiding his fortune, he decided to expand his power. He purchased shares in financial institutions. He moved closer to the center of Portugal's banking system. At one point, he even attempted to gain influence over the very institutions that could have exposed him. The scam was becoming larger and riskier, but his confidence kept growing. As more and more banknotes entered circulation, strange questions began to appear. Some financial experts noticed unusual patterns. Large amounts of money seemed to be appearing from nowhere. The economy was behaving strangely. Then investigators discovered something alarming. Certain banknotes shared identical serial numbers. That should have been impossible. Two genuine banknotes should never have the same serial number. Yet they did. For the first time, the fraud began to unravel. Authorities launched an intensive investigation. The deeper they looked, the more shocking the truth became. This was not a traditional counterfeiting operation. No secret printing press had been discovered. No underground factory existed. Instead, investigators learned that genuine banknotes had been produced through forged authorization documents. The realization stunned Portugal. The country's financial system had been manipulated from the inside. One man had exploited weaknesses in international banking, legal verification, and trust. The scandal exploded across Portugal. Newspapers covered the story extensively. Politicians faced criticism. Financial institutions faced embarrassment. Public confidence suffered. Eventually, Reis was arrested. The man who had appeared unstoppable suddenly found himself facing justice. His empire collapsed almost overnight. The financial damage was enormous. The scandal shook confidence in Portugal's banking system. It contributed to political instability. It damaged reputations both in Portugal and abroad. For Waterloo & Sons, the consequences were severe. The company faced lawsuits and public scrutiny. Its reputation suffered tremendously. The fraud became one of the most famous financial scandals of the 20th century. Even today, economists, historians, and fraud investigators continue to study the Alves dos Reis affair. Why? Because it demonstrated an important lesson. The greatest financial crimes are not always committed with weapons. Sometimes they are committed with paperwork. Sometimes the most powerful tool is not force, it is trust. Reis understood that institutions rely on documents, procedures, and assumptions. By exploiting those assumptions, he accomplished something many believed impossible. He persuaded the system itself to create the money he wanted. Artur Alves dos Reis never robbed a bank with a gun. He never broke into a vault. He never printed counterfeit notes in a hidden basement. Instead, he used forged documents, confidence, and extraordinary audacity. And for a brief moment in history, he convinced an entire financial system to manufacture wealth on his behalf. It remains one of the most astonishing frauds ever recorded. A crime so unusual that even today, it sounds more like fiction than reality. But every part of it really happened.